Hey guys, it's Bailey from Making It from the Midwest, and this is going to be a review along with some swatches of the IT Cosmetics Naturally Pretty palette, brand new and I think exclusive to QVC. I purchased this for $35 and it's currently available for that price, but it also said it's a promotional price and originally valued or available at $42. So I'm sure it can vacillate between those two depending on when you purchase it. But this palette is a completely matte palette and it comes with a transforming shimmery cream shade, 15 total shadows, and also comes with a dual-ended Heavenly Luxe brush. On one side you have a flat shader brush and on the other you have a fluffy blending brush. Now before I get to the palette, I have to tell you about this brush. It is one of my absolute favorite brushes of all time, not just from IT Cosmetics but of all time, because it does everything you need it to. The flat shader is perfect for packing on color. It's small enough and precise enough to get in the inner corner, as well as thin enough to do lining on the upper and smudging on the lower lash line. Additionally, you have this fluffier brush to do blending all over the lid, as well as apply some best friend blending colors into the crease. To me, if I go on a trip, this is the only brush I need to take if I'm really looking to pare down, because it does it all. So right off the bat, a fantastic value, and this has a pretty high value in and of itself. So for $35, you get this and this. I love this. Now onto the palette. So first let's start with the packaging. You can see it is very similar to the Naked palette. It is exactly the same length, but it's a tiny bit taller. You can see it peeking out over the top there. It actually also has a very similar texture to the Naked palette. It's not quite as felty. It's more like a faux suede and has sort of a puffy texture to it. But it does have the same gold overlay with the letters, and you can see how my Naked palette wore with that throughout travel and just general wear and tear. I have already traveled with this palette and can see that that text is already starting to flake and chip off, so this is not my favorite packaging. Additionally, you can see when it opens up, there's this little magnetic clasp here. It's very secure and didn't come open once when I was traveling, but because you can't get your fingernails under here, it's a little bit harder to do that and open it like that. I find myself grabbing for the corner here, and over time it's going to get turned up and just be a little bit less sleek looking. It's going to be a little messier looking, kind of with Naked 1. I can see future iterations of this being in more of a hard case palette that just tends to be what works best for something like this. But packaging aside, let's get into the shadows inside the palette. So the interior of this palette contains a nice size mirror. It's not huge, but it's enough to get the job done, and I have actually used it for doing my makeup. Onto the shadows, the defining characteristic of this palette is the fact that all of the shadows are matte, and then it has one light, shimmery, kind of sheer champagne color that they call a transformer that you're supposed to use over top or in conjunction with the rest of the matte shadows to transform them into something softer and a little bit more shimmery. Another unique aspect of this palette is that it's not just a neutral bunch. There are a mix of a few colors between plums, violets, purples, navies. There's a black, there are some taupes, there are some in-between mauves. It's just a great mix. Very neutral shades. I've created nothing but really natural, neutral looking looks with them, but there are some subtle hues in there that you can use to complement various eye colors and skin tones. It's pretty safe to say that all of the shadows in this palette are really smooth and buttery and have a consistency that's very similar to that of the matte shadows in the Lorac Pro palette, which, if you're familiar, are divine. They apply smoothly and evenly, they blend beautifully, they're just the ideal matte shadow to have. The Transforming Pearl shade is nice to have worn alone, but I can't say it does too much in the way of actually transforming each of the shades. I have a swatch of 3 of these so you can see what it's like, what the originals are like versus what they are like when they are mixed with this pearl, and there really isn't a huge difference. It might soften them, it might add a little extra dimension, but for the most part, this I use as a standalone shade and don't worry about mixing it with others because it just doesn't do a whole lot. Even without multiple shimmery shadows though, I think this is a fantastic staple to have for blending colors, for all over daytime matte eyes, for very sophisticated smoky eyes. I always find that doing a smoky eye with completely matte shadows kind of takes it up a notch. It just makes it a little bit more sophisticated, and is also a great matte palette for those with more mature eyes. If you find that shimmery shadows are emphasizing fine lines and wrinkles around the eye area, matte shadows might give the effect, more of an effect that you want. Additionally, these can be used both wet and dry. You don't get that film over the eyeshadow that renders it pretty much useless if you use it with water or a mixing medium, so that's nice as well and adds a little bit more versatility. In terms of pricing and value, this is a fantastic set between getting 15 eyeshadows in here and the double-ended brush here. As a comparison, the Pro palette for 10 matte shadows and 10 shimmery shadows, it's I think $42, which is on par with what this is full priced. And then as a more comparable comparison, I think it's Stila's In the Know palette, which is a 100% matte palette. It comes with an eyeliner as opposed to a brush, but you only get 10 shadows in this one and you don't get near the shade range. Also, this retails for $39, I want to say, so it's still on par price-wise, but I find the shadows in here can be a little more chalky and you get less of a shade range and less shadows. So if you want a completely matte palette with a little bit of versatility with the light pearlescent shimmer shade, this is by far the way to go. Lives up to the IT Cosmetics eyeshadow standard, and you get this fantastic eyeshadow brush. And if you can snag it for the price of $35 instead of the $42, although it's worth the $42, it's even more fantastic. So like I said before, I think this is exclusively available at QVC, and if you are into matte shadows, I highly recommend you check it out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this review helpful, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!